Welcome. Okay, so it says I'm live. I apologize to any of you that noticed that I had reserved a live session at 7 and couldn't get in myself, and so I restarted it. So hopefully you will find the right icon or whatever on the screen when you log back into YouTube, and you'll find. Happy Monday night. We missed doing this last week because of Labor Day. So we are back, and we are back for my first actual series because this is September and it is National Suicide Prevention Month. I'm going to do a series for every Monday this month, and we're going to be talking because there's just way too much to cover and it's too important. We're going to be covering a lot of different aspects of preventing suicide. So I'm just going to kind of talk while you guys are joining. And again, it's a heavy topic. And I know that for me and for probably many of you that saw this and are joining, you probably also have a heavy heart, whether it's because you've been affected by it yourself or you just have a heavy heart in general because you know that this is a leading killer of our society. And we already have enough of those situations going around in the world right now that we really want to try to focus on as many of those things that we can control. And this is most definitely one of those. So I'm going to take a quick drink of water. Okay. When you do join me, again, I know that it might take a couple of you that normally join a second because I had already reserved a time and a slot for you to just click and join. And I don't know what happened this time, but it didn't work. There's technical issues no matter how long I've been doing this. It just, things pop up that I wasn't really accounting for. But when you do join me, if you would please tell me that you're here so I can acknowledge you and say hi, and other people will see that you are here. My rule or my hi Electra, my encouragement is always that you guys will participate at whatever level you want to. I am not going to call on you. It's not going to be awkward. I am used to leading not only therapy sessions, but group therapy sessions. And I do the same thing in those. I want you guys to just participate. It's that time of night where you guys are probably juggling a lot of things with your families and ending your day at work and trying to get ready for the next day. And so I know a lot of you have even told me when I've seen you later on in the week, you've said, I was trying to get the kids ready and I was listening with one ear to the live stream and then trying to do life. I completely get that. Even listening with one ear to tonight's topic is most definitely better than nothing. Because like I said before, this is really, really important. Even if I only have a handful of you guys that are joining live, my hope is that you are going to share this with other people, your family, your friends, your community, that you'll post this on your socials, and you'll get people to hear this information that maybe you've been trying to tell them before, and they either didn't know how to hear it from you, or it wasn't the right time, or they weren't ready, or any of those many, many barriers that happen. So I am definitely doing anything that I can to reach the people that I can impact. But I believe that it has a bit of a domino effect, and I've seen that firsthand. So when I impact you and I share something with you that you find helpful and beneficial and something that you can really, kind of meditate on during the week and just really process, I hope that you will take that and share that with other people. Because especially in mental health, it usually takes about 9 to 10 times. And that's absolutely the truth. I'm not just making that number up. 9 to 10 times of something being in front of somebody for them to really hear it and pay attention and act on it. So if you've been trying to tell somebody in your family about boundaries or what you need from them, or something as important as addressing their mental health, 1, 2, 3, that's not going to cover it. It's like it's barely scratching the surface, and they are distracting themselves on purpose or by accident. Life gets busy. There's all these things going on. So keep trying. That is one of the big themes that you're going to hear me talk about tonight and every other Monday this week is you just have to keep trying. You have to keep talking. You have to keep communicating, putting these messages in front of people, and it works. I am here to tell you as a professional in this field, it works. These things I'm going to be talking with you about tonight and every other Monday in this month, these things are coming from experience, both personal and professional. And I can tell you that it works. So if it's possible for you to A, take notes, then please do that. B, listen to this over and over. Please do that. This is interactive. You will see me look down quite a bit tonight because there are statistics I'm going to be reading off to you and things that I don't want to forget about. It's a little bit less organic than some of my other online YouTube sessions like this. But please don't take that as I don't want to hear from you or I'm not going to address anything that you put in the chat. I definitely will, especially at the right time. And just keep the chat going with each other. Of course, you can always do that. But if you're trying to get my attention about something, I'm pretty good at looking over at it and addressing what you guys put there. So again, just to kind of welcome and reintroduce anybody else who might be joining right now, or it's good to just repeat this information because it's vital. This is the month of September. Today, when I'm recording this, it's September 9th, and it is National Suicide Prevention Month. You guys know that there's probably a lot of different, national months that occur if you were to look that up. But some of them are less important. Let's just say that. This could also be National Ice Cream Month, right? Just as an example. But National Suicide Prevention Month has been September for a very, very long time. I don't know how far back that goes, but it's a big deal. So this channel, let me talk to you briefly about why I have this channel. I haven't had it for very long, but I've been just gradually trying to pick up the pace and put more things on here that are going to be beneficial to you guys that are watching. My name is Kimberly Christian. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a faith-based therapist. I've been in practice for about 16 years. I have lots of experience and even more heart and passion for talking about these things. And so I put together this channel because I don't normally see faith and mental health being combined. And if they are combined, they're not being combined properly. Sometimes they come with a side of shame. Sometimes they come with a side of less education and just conjecture. I want to be able to bring information to you guys that is coming from a clinical standpoint, but also I know that many people that are looking at my channel, they're believers. And so I try to tackle the topics that affect people that are believers. They love Jesus Christ. They've given their heart and their life over to the Lord. And they also either are struggling with mental health issues or they just really care about mental health because everybody has mental health, but not everybody has issues and struggles that they are dealing with, right? So that's why this is here. And I don't say this often, but I want to, especially tonight, because I'm always coming at my topics from a clinical standpoint as well as a biblical standpoint. But tonight, with everything I'm going to be talking about, I just want to make sure that you guys know, yes, I am a clinician. Yes, I am able to give prescriptive counsel, but that is not my goal in this YouTube space. I am not here to give medical advice. I do not know your situation. I do not know what you are dealing with and the dynamics of that. And so I try to be very, very broad, specific, but broad. I know that sounds like it is an oxymoron, but I'm not trying to give you exact counsel. In fact, at the end of this, you will hear me talk about things that I'm going to guide you towards, that if you're hearing something that you want to hear more of, you will know how to do that. You will know how to get help. All of those things I'm going to be covering. Hi, Shannon. I'm glad you're here too. I see that we've had a few more people join. So if you could say hi and let me know that you're here, I sure would love to say hi to you. Okay, so again, this is the first series that I've ever covered on YouTube. I'm known as a therapist for doing a lot of series. I've covered things that went on for 2.5 years. But I just haven't really done that here. I've talked about boundaries a couple of times. I've talked about self-esteem a couple of times. Hi, Danelle. I'm glad you're with us tonight. Welcome. But with this being the National Suicide Prevention Month, I am going to talk about this topic for a total of 4 weeks because there is that much to cover. I don't know how I'm going to break it down. I just know that tonight we're going to be covering some of the most common Q&As that I've experienced as a therapist, and hopefully making it easier for you guys to um, to hear my viewpoint on those things, but maybe you're just not comfortable putting that in the chat and saying, I'm curious how to handle this or what to do here. Or, I myself, I struggle with these things. And so I'm wanting to get some feedback on this. So I'm trying to at least take the sting out of some of those initial questions. There's no way on earth I'm going to even come close to covering everything or the most important things, which is why I'm doing this in a 4-part series. And if there's something that I didn't cover that you either want me to cover because you need to hear it, or B, you've experienced it and you want other people to have me talk about that, then please get a hold of me any way possible. At the end of this, I'll talk to you about, if you haven't worked with me before, I will talk to you about how to message me and how to get a hold of me on social media and all of those things. Okay, so here's some statistics. This is one of the reasons why I said it would be important for you guys to write some of this information down, especially if you're going to be sharing this with somebody later and they don't have access to watch this video right away, because it won't be posted till probably tomorrow morning. So there was an increase of 37% of successful death by suicides between the years of 2000 and 2018. It decreased by 5% between the years of 2018 and 2020, but then it returned to its peak by 2022. It is 4 times higher in males. It is within the top 10 methods of, not methods, that's not the right word. It's the top, in the top 10 ways that people die. Okay. And I don't know how many years that would go back. I just know I looked at the last few years and it's consistently been in the top 10. That goes along with things like car accidents and other medical conditions. A lot of those things are unmanaged. When I looked at the list, they're things that most people would have and have dealt with, but they're not managing diabetes. They're not managing their heart condition. They're not managing, what else did I see? Just a lot of other conditions that would lead to it being much more serious. So cancer, of course, was on that list. Lots of different kinds of cancer. And along with that was death by suicide. So I think that those things are important to remember. Along with that, because we're going to be talking about this later on tonight, over 50%, when it was looked at as far as a pie graph, over 50% of the time, the method was firearms. And so I'm strictly going to be talking about that from a mental health perspective. I am not trying to get in any way trying to get political about whether it's okay or not okay to bear arms. But I'm just going to be talking about it from a clinical perspective. But just know that over 50% of the time, that was the method that was used. Okay, and if you are joining us, I know Shannon and Danelle came in after I was sharing this. Please feel free to post any questions or comments that you have about what I'm talking about. I'm taking on at least the top 3 to 4 things that I would deal with most often as a clinician. But if there's something that you really want to hear me talk about tonight, there will be time for that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is why. Why does this happen? Why do people get to this place of experiencing such a low, mentally speaking, that this is the only thing that they can see possible? And so what I put together here, and this is a very, very loaded statement because there's no guarantee on here's why. There's no poll, there's nothing that we're going to be able to identify and say it's always these things. And that's the case for anything that I'm going to talk about. There's no guarantee in anything that I'm saying. I just want to offer you the experience that I've had, both personally and professionally, and let you know that in the case of why does this happen? Why do people get to this place mentally? There are some things that I would say are commonalities. When I think back on cases that I experienced where the person was chronically suicidal, um, or of course in my field, I've experienced that. Just being in the field itself, I'm not saying that this has happened to any of the patients that I have treated. I'm very thankful to the Lord that it has not. But I've heard about that with other colleagues that I've known. And so all of that, when I pull from that criteria and that feedback in my own mind, these are the commonalities that I have seen. Number one, a lack of resources. Just in general, a lack of resources. Some of the things I wrote to the side of that, just to give you an idea, would be money. So, one of the years that is covered when I talked about there being an increase between the year 2000 and 2018, that's a really big gap, but it says that it increased by 37%. That is really, really high. Of course, that includes the year 2008 when there was an economic crash. And so that's part of what I am referring to when I say that a lack of resources can absolutely mean, and there goes the color. The color just randomly changes on my live stream for some strange reason. A lack of resources can mean that, a person has lost their job. It can mean that a person has made decisions that have caused their family to suffer financially, and they're feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of shame over whatever that decision was. It could be that bad decision making. It could be the fact that they took a job thinking it was going to be just the perfect situation, only to find out that they were laid off from that, a few months into it. I mean, there's a lot of things there, but lack of money or money being involved, as you will see as we go along, that is a very, very big risk factor. The lack of help, and I'm going to talk about this in my next point, but the lack of help, or at least the perception, that's a really big thing as a therapist that I take very seriously when I'm dealing with my patients, is I'm trying to get into their mind, into their thinking. And many times it's the lack of their perception of help. Because as I'm digging deeper and I'm into the assessment, I'm trying to find out, what their community looks like and, who are their greatest sources of support. There's many times, especially early on when I didn't know how to address this barrier with people, they would tell me and I would immediately just take them at their word. They would say, I don't have anybody. I don't have anybody that can manage my medications. I don't have anybody that can pick me up from the hospital I'm discharged. I don't have anybody. And that, that can mean that their perception is such that they've cut off those relationships. They've made really bad decisions. This was really common when I was working inpatient at a hospital. They had made really bad decisions. And in that case, it was a perfect distortion because there was truth to the fact that they had burned some bridges. There were relationships that were being really challenged or harmed as a result of that person's drinking or drug use or, chronically threatening self-harm or just not managing their mental health in general, and the impact that it was having on the marriage or the relationships or their job, right? So there's truth to that. But for someone to say, I have no one, I will tell you to this day, that has never happened. It's never happened where I was treating someone short-term or long-term and they said they literally had no one and they meant it. We're always able to just go back and back as far as we need to into the archives of relationships and neighborhoods and jobs, and we're able to to find somebody, because as a social worker, this is different than a lot of other fields of therapy, and I've known this from the very beginning. It's one of the reasons why I love my field, but I see it over and over and over, as a social worker, one thing that we do differently is we really like to involve the person in the environment. We call that the pie. We really like to involve, family, friends, people that go to church with this person, anybody, because whether it's discharge planning that we're talking about, or it is, those first several months after they have stopped inpatient treatment or outpatient treatment, whatever it is, we're trying to get that other person or those persons involved and letting them know these are the directions, right? This is what we want you to follow. This is how we want you to address these things. This is when to come back to the hospital. All of those things are talked about. And for me, that never changed after I left the inpatient setting. I took that into my private practice because I saw such tremendous value in being able to talk to a person's loved ones and to realize, just like I mentioned in the very beginning of this video, their loved one may have said something to them 5, 10, 15 times of whatever it was. But for whatever reason, them hearing it then from me as the clinician, they heard it differently. It was like they were listening, but they weren't hearing until we had that family session. And then all of a sudden they realized, oh my gosh, we need to do this. We need to have family meetings. We need to, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever that was. So I'm going to kind of recap on any of these things I've talked about so that you don't lose what it is, what the point is of what I'm discussing here, all the commonalities. So lack of resources is a huge, huge risk factor. The next one is lack of community. See, I talked about that just a second ago, and it bridges right into this. The lack of community. There's so much I could say about this. Internal and external. Okay, so their community, internal means their family of origin, the family that they've created, whatever that happens to be, that's the internalized view of community. But we also look at the external view of community. And again, it goes back into, what I just mentioned before of what that person's perception is. So they might see it as nobody cares, nobody's there for me. But the truth is, again, this is one of those things I realized after assessing people and being met almost immediately with, I don't have anybody. They didn't have anybody that they wanted to ask. And so I really, really had to push that envelope time and time again to help that person see the great value in pulling somebody into that setting, whether it was at the hospital or whether it was, in my private practice, whatever it was. I needed that person to be a part of this conversation because the person I'm treating keeps mentioning them over and over. And so there was a lot of correcting the mindset, helping that person to see it's not that you don't have anyone, it's that you don't want to ask. And that's a completely different therapeutic issue, that you don't want to ask for help. But do you see how that's its own risk factor? Someone doesn't want to ask for help. They have a thought of, I'm a burden. They have a thought of, no one else is going to know what to do. No one else understands what I'm experiencing. But the truth of the matter is, and this is something that I work, with my individual patients all the time on, is asking for the things that you need and not feeling guilt about it in any way. We all have needs. We can't do life alone. And there's many times in this life that we get brought to a situation that we don't have any other way through. We have to ask for help. We have to say, I'm not okay. I don't know what's going on and I don't know what to do. And you may not know what to do, but I'm lost. I'm hurting and I'm really, really struggling and I need something. That's a really humbling thing to do. But remember, or maybe you're hearing this for the first time, if you've been listening to any of my videos that I've done in the last couple of weeks, one of the things I've said over and over is that we need to be comfortable talking about our pride. We need to be comfortable talking about the fact that everybody has it. It looks different on everybody, but this is yet another way that it shows up in the mind of someone who is really struggling with suicidal thoughts is, I don't want to take help, or I don't want to tell people that I need the help. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that I got to this place. It's embarrassing that I don't know what to do. It's embarrassing that I would have to ask off for time, time off from work to address my needs in therapy or address my needs in an inpatient setting. I realize that those are very, very difficult things to do. But that barrier is just not great enough to not pursue right through it, to not walk right through it, and to say we have to do this. There has to be a logical, rational way of looking at this, because you do need the help, and the help is there for you. So a lack of resources, a lack of community. Some of you guys have definitely heard me talk about this before. And if you haven't, please go back and watch one of the videos I did on the importance of community. As believers, it's a really big deal. And we hear that all the time. And we hear it for all the reasons, like, I'm just going to paraphrase some of these things. God didn't just create one person. He created Adam. And then he realized it's not good for man to be alone. So he created Eve, and then so on and so forth. And here we are. He created us. We are his best and most favorite creation. He created us to be with each other. He created us to need each other. He created us to need him. But somehow we forget about the fact that community isn't just important because of all of those needs. It's also, things like, from a Christian perspective, it's what he's put inside of us, this deposit he's put inside of each of us that makes us so unique, is there to bless the body, right? And so for me in particular, there's some things I think I'm pretty good at, and there's a lot of things I'm not good at. But I do know that this is something that God has deposited into me for the body of Christ, and that is to talk about mental health in a comfortable way that includes him. And that's, like I said, I think that's a really unique thing. But it's having these conversations where we realize that part of my community is not just being around other believers and having a nice little, Christian time at church, and Jesus is always the right answer, and John 3:16 and all those things. Those are wonderful things. But also saying, hey, how are you doing? How are you really doing? Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about the fact that it's important to God. So the other risk factor that I see in common is a lack of hope. This one probably will not surprise you at all, does it? A lack of hope. I talked about hope last week in my message. And that's a really big statement, because that's what we see in this world right now. We see such a lack of hope. People thinking that things are only going to get worse. They're not going to get better. Everybody's searching for something, but very, very few people, collectively speaking, are really sharing what the true hope is. And true hope really, truly is found in Jesus Christ, that he came to save us, that he is the only way to God the Father. He's the only way to heaven. And some people hear that message and they don't want it. Some people know that message and they don't want to share it. And my view on that, because I see such a direct correlation to people that are struggling with such painful things, such as, I don't want to be here anymore. There needs to be more of those of us that feel comfortable in our faith and feel gifted and understand the Great Commission that God charged us with, all of us, with doing that. We need to look at it like it is, like being an evangelist is not just, well, if that works for you. It's the truth. And it's you read about it in Matthew. It's what he left in the hands of the apostles, and he wanted them to bring that forward. And here we are, sitting here with the same call in our lives. I know that some people, because they've told me this in private sessions, that they just don't feel comfortable doing that. They think that that's a gift for some people, but it's not for all people. I'm going to challenge that thought for you tonight, because I'm going to directly connect it with the attempts of suicide. When people do not see any hope in sight, they don't see any way to make anything different. Whatever predicament that they have found themselves in, or however they are feeling medically, clinically, environmentally, socially, spiritually, academically, financially, any of those ways, they see it as there is no way to fix this. And we, as believers and disciples of Christ, even if we are not, and we probably are not, preaching at them in that moment, just like I'm not preaching at you guys tonight or any night, I also want to interweave the truth into these messages. And I want to encourage you guys to do that, because when someone is really, really hurting and they do not know what to do, and they have managed to have the courage to say, I'm not doing okay, and I really, really need some help, we need to be able to immediately show them that we have enough hope for both of us, for us and for them. And so that's what I tell my patients' families whenever I'm meeting with them. That's what I tell my patients directly when I'm meeting with them. I will tell them that I'm not going to be scared or intimidated with anything that they're sharing with me. We can always figure it out together. And that there's no problem that's going to be too big for us to figure out. And even if the family that I am coaching at that moment is really thinking, well, gosh, that sounds like a nice thing to say, but I don't know that I can really mean that. Maybe it does freak me out. Maybe I don't know what to do. I encourage them to just say it anyway. Just speak hope into that situation and buy yourself some time on the back end to figure out, who do I need to reach out to? Whom can I call? How can I look this up? What resource am I supposed to be looking up online? What do I need to be doing? You don't have to know it in that exact moment, but you don't want to feed into the hopelessness that your loved one is feeling. Because at that moment, and again, I know that there might be some of you that are watching this at any time, tonight or later, and you're thinking, oh, you're not even covering even a portion of all the things that go in through a person's mind when they are suicidal. You're absolutely right. I know I'm not. Like I said, there's several more weeks ahead of us. But I can tell you, in that moment, it's like they're not testing you. I don't mean it that way, but there's a test that's happening. And I have felt it in the rooms that I've been in when this has gone on. And the test looks like this. They are feeling so hopeless. And in many ways, it's like they're almost trying to convince you that that is reality. And so if you're the person listening, the test is that you are either going to say, oh, wow, yeah, that's pretty rough. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do either. I don't know how you're going to get out of that. Or you can tell that it's very serious to them. You can hear that they are really struggling to see a way through this. And you let them know it's okay. It's okay. There's nothing bigger. There's nothing more important than your life. So let's talk about this. How can I help you? What will you allow me to do to help you? Right? There has to be some way that you are showing them that you have hope where they don't. Because I'm telling you, I've had patients try really, really hard, and I don't think they're doing it on purpose in any way. I think it's just an automatic response that happens because of all the things that are happening up here. And we'll talk about this in the next couple of weeks. All of the thoughts that are going on in their minds at that time. It's so real to them that they're very surprised when I don't meet that. I don't agree with that. But they're trying to say, yes, this is the truth. This is reality. Why do you not see how awful the world is, or how awful my life is, or how, I really don't have anybody, or nobody cares or understands or will know what to do. And I'm telling you guys, I'm speaking to every one of you, whether you've struggled with this or whether you love people who struggle with this. I'm telling you, as a believer, in those moments, and I'm telling you this as someone who's been trained to deal with these situations, But even through all of that, there are times that I have felt not as prepared as I would have liked. And it's in that moment that I just very briefly just I just I just put this prayer out there to the Lord, and I said, "You've got to tell me what to do. You've got to tell me what to say. I don't know what this person needs to hear. I know that what I want is to convey some level of hope to them. And I may never say your name. I may never give you glory and give you credit by name for this moment because it's just not the right timing. But you and I know that you, through your Holy Spirit, are giving me the words of life that I need to say, where I look them in the eyes and I say, your life matters, and I am listening to you, and I care about what you are saying, and we are going to figure this out one step at a time." Because in the depressed person's brain, the suicidality, the suicide, the I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue twisted because there's so many words here, but the brain that is struggling with suicidal ideation, they are feeling very overwhelmed. They are feeling just literally overwhelmed, as though they were in quicksand and someone was just throwing dirt on top of them. That's what they feel like. And so I've noticed that a physical shift takes place when I can look at a patient, and this is even virtual. I've had many sessions like that over Zoom, and I'm able to say to them, we are going to just take this one day at a time, one piece at a time. We do not and cannot figure out all of this in one session or in one day. And I just see them they just breathe differently. Their posture is differently. It's not, that exaggerated, of course, but I can tell that I took a load off of them by just letting them know, you've given me some of your stuff. You've told me some of your burden. I'm sharing that with you. And we are going to link arms, and we're doing this together. Those things right there conveyed hope. And I never once quoted scripture at them or told them that Jesus loved them or that the only way to heaven is through him. All of those things are true, but that's not what happens in those moments. And this is even with believers. In fact, can I say this? It's especially with believers, because the minute we start saying things like that, they hear it. They hear it, even though you're not saying this. They hear it as judgment. They hear it as shame. Like, oh, well, if I had more faith, if I was really reading the word, if I was really recalling scripture like I'm supposed to, well, then I wouldn't be experiencing this. And I never want someone to hear that. I'm on an anti-shame campaign that I started, and I'm the only one on it, or I'm the only one that is championing it right now. That's the last thing I want, is for them to hear that I'm trying to throw shame at them. So, can you bring faith into the conversations? Of course. After all of these things that we're talking about are said, then maybe you say, can I pray for you? I don't know many people that would say no. Some people would, but I think many people, when they're at that place, they really are feeling so desperate for a change, for hope, for an answer, that as long as you're not asking them, you're not asking them to pray for you or to join you, you're saying, can I pray for you? And by that point, you already know everything to pray for, right? You've already heard all of the things that they're worried about, all of the dark and the deep thoughts that they are plagued with at that moment. And then you are able to bring the Lord fully into that conversation, to ask him to be proactive, to take those thoughts away, to fill them with comfort, to fill them with hope that only he can provide. And it really is a beautiful thing, because it is where his super meets our natural. That's something that I hear at my church a lot, and it really is true. He brings his super into our natural, and our natural is the world we live in. We have to talk about medications. We have to talk about firearms. Just like I said earlier, we have to talk about keeping the home safe. We have to talk about check-ins, all of those clinical things. But then we're also saying, God of the universe, creator of all things, the one who loves this person that I'm sitting in front of more than anybody ever will. Show them that. Show them that you will never leave them. You will never forsake them, and that they will not feel that loneliness. Because that's another part of all of this, is that, and this, again, this is something I'll talk about in future weeks, but the thoughts that come to a person when they are experiencing this create so much loneliness. They create so much isolation. They're not true. The thoughts are so distorted and oftentimes fully 180 degrees irrational, but nonetheless, to that person, they're really happening. They literally are happening. And the person, no matter how skillful they are, they don't have the ability in that moment to put them through the sifter and let all the junk fall out, and they just hang on to the good rational stuff. It's just too much. It's too hard in that moment. So that's why I'm going to be leaving you with some resources here in a moment, because there may be some of you that, you can't listen to the whole thing, or you can't listen every single Monday. I want to give you so much. And as you can tell, I've barely taken a breath since I started this. There's a lot to cover, but this is also very, very important to me. If you've ever heard me, I know I just really started sharing my story in the last couple of months, actually, and I've been a clinician for 15, 16 years. Suicide is something that has impacted my family. I've lost one member to death by suicide, and I was, in my early 20s when that happened. I have lost another family member to an accidental suicide, an overdose, and I lost another family member that I would have married into. I never got to meet him, and he was also really struggling with mental health issues. And so I carry those precious people with me. I don't mean anything weird when I say this at all, because I'm not reaching out to people that have passed. I'm not praying to them. It's nothing like that. But I carry their legacy. And I'm all on the days that are hard for me, on the days that I just think, why am I doing this? Is this really making a difference? I really do picture those three precious faces. And I think, what would they want me to tell people? What would have made a difference for them? What did they need to hear? What do they want us to hear that are being left in this life to carry on and to carry on this name and this legacy? And it really does make a difference. So not only has it impacted my own life, and it still, all these years later still does. It's still something that my family talks about, and will never, ever, ever be the same after losing someone to suicide. It just, it's a benchmark. I don't know if benchmark is the right term, but it's a separator. It's like it stops time. Like AD and BC. It's like that. You just remember things like before that person passed on and after. And I'm not saying that it's worse, although for some people they would absolutely say that it is. I'm saying it is such a unique loss because there's so many questions, and it brings up so much for every person that's impacted by that death, that I feel very confident in saying you're just not ever the same. You're just not ever the same. And even with therapy, good therapy, you can heal and you can move forward, but it just does something. And because of that, because it does something to us and it just marks us in that way, I really think that is all we need to know to keep doing things like this, where we talk about it and we share and we see it like we would evangelizing. Right? Like what causes you to evangelize? What causes you to be, some of you are salespeople. What causes you to be a good salesperson? I have heard someone really big in the sales world is Brian Tracy. And I've heard about him from my husband. And Brian Tracy has this quote where he refers to sales, good sales, as the transfer of enthusiasm. Now, I want you to think about why I'm saying that in tonight's topic. This is nothing to be enthusiastic about, but can we say passionate? That's a synonym, right? And when you are so enthusiastic or so passionate about something, isn't that what makes the greatest salespeople? That they hit the numbers every month, that they are liked by people. People want to do business with them because they are coming across with such a passion and such an enthusiasm, such an impact of, I really mean this. This is really the truth. And that's why I say that all of us need to look at evangelizing in that way. If you really know that God exists and that He's the only true God and that everything that the Bible says is absolutely true, then it makes it easier to say, of course I'm going to talk about that. Of course I'm going to share those things because it's the truth. We're only, kind of skittish about it when we're not really sure that it's the truth. And it's the same in talking about suicide prevention. You know that it impacts lives. I've told you how many lives that it impacts. I've told you what a national crisis we're in as it relates to that. And because you know the facts, you know the truth, and some of you have been personally impacted by it, that needs to be something that you bring out, that you come across with that kind of passion of anyone who's willing to listen. You're going to talk about how to stay safe. You're going to talk about how to check in with people. That's a video I did, I think 2 weeks ago, where I talked about how do you actually check in with your loved ones. That goes right along with this message. That method that I taught you in that video is exactly what I do with my patients every day, all day long. And it can save lives. Because here's another thing. I don't have this in my notes, or I guess I kind of do, because my next point was, how do I respond to someone who is suicidal? You take them seriously. That's another video that I did a few weeks ago. I wasn't pairing it with this necessarily, but you'll hear it differently if you listen to it now. You take it seriously every single time. You may live with someone or know someone that just kind of throws that phrase around. But you need to be someone that says, we don't mess around with that. If you're saying something like that, I have some follow-up questions. And one of those follow-up questions that kind of brings us full circle again needs to be, do you have any access to the very thing that you're thinking about? So I'm not putting, clinical methodologies on you guys right now. I just want to empower you that you don't have to be a clinician to ask some very basic questions that can go a real long way in communicating to your loved one that you take it very seriously, that you are listening, that in your own way you are disputing what their brain is telling them, which is nobody cares, nobody would miss me, nobody understands this, nobody listens, and on, right? Remember, isolation, loneliness, those things are birthed from a lot of the thoughts that they're having. So you are letting them know, I take you seriously. And you would ask them something like, do you have access? Or something I would ask them is, tell me exactly what it is you're thinking. What do those thoughts sound like? And say it in a way where they know you're not judging them and that you're not freaking out, but you're just saying, tell me what that sounds like. For you, that allows you to realize, are they saying it in a way of like, oh, I'm just overwhelmed. Today is such a hard day. I just can't do this anymore. Versus they're saying, well, the state of the world right now, it's not looking good. I can't imagine it getting any better. What am I here for anyway? We're all going to be taken out. So, right? You're assessing what their thoughts are. And then as the person who's not a clinician, you're getting them into the hands of someone. So that addresses one of my other points. I'm going to kind of come back and forth in the next couple of minutes. But this is one of the points I want you to know. If I'm going to do or push for any one thing, what should it be? As the loved one, as the friend, as the supporter, I'm going to say they're a pair. So you cannot separate them. It's best not to. It's therapy and psychotropic medication. So in other words, getting them to a psychiatrist to be evaluated to see if they need medication for the things that they're struggling with psychotherapy. Those two things. If there's anything that you remember about what we're talking about and you know someone who's really struggling, please, that person. I don't. you need to find a way to say, this is the one thing that we need to have addressed, that we need to look at, that we need to take seriously. We can pray. We can read scripture every day. We can go to church. We can tell as many family members as possible. We can create an awareness. We can check in with each other. All of those things are absolutely wonderful things that I would recommend and will anyway. But without the clinical piece, you don't have the clinical eye. And I'm telling you, it goes a long, long way for me to actually see somebody with my eyes and for them to see me. That's why I, as a therapist, I don't do phone calls. I know some therapists do, and I think, insurance even allows that to happen. I don't ever do phone calls unless it's just a quick, 10-minute consultation or something. I want to see that person. I want to see their mannerisms. I want to see if there's anything, any markings on their face or anything else that would get my attention. I want them to see me. I want them to see me looking at them while I'm asking these questions. So I would push for therapy and psychiatry, and I would do that sooner than later. Because again, I'm telling you guys some very easy, practical things that you can talk about with your loved one, but you don't have the training, right? And you don't have the resources. You can't admit somebody into a hospital. You just know that based on your questioning, you know that now you need to take it a step further. And maybe that means you're calling 911. Maybe that means that you are looking on psychologytoday.com and helping them find a therapist that fits all of their criteria. That's the number one site that I would go to, other than calling your own insurance company to ask them for a list of people that accept your insurance. As a therapist, I will go to the website Psychology Today. I put in all the filters that someone's looking for, and it creates a really, really nice list. And so the person that's saying, well, I don't even know where to start, that's where to start. I've told my patients this. And so if you're a patient of mine, you've heard me say this before, but I will literally never stop talking about this. Any case in the world with well-known people outside of media, people that I have known or heard of, this is one common factor that absolutely is worth talking about. Anytime I've heard of a death by suicide, this is one of the things that I look into in diving into the situation, which I don't do for any other reason than this. I like to know if that person was involved in therapy. And I'm telling you, as of today, I've not run across one situation where a person has died by suicide, and that includes my own family, where they were involved in good therapy. It's always a deficit. It is always something that either they were seeing somebody on and off, or they were not seeking someone. It had been years. I mean, there's always a situation like that, but there's something so incredibly valuable about being the person who's struggling with suicidal thoughts and knowing that someone is going to be checking in on you. It's the strongest accountability. Well, I don't want to say the strongest. It is a very strong aspect or piece of accountability. When you know that your therapist is going to see you every week, they're going to be checking in on you. I like to tell my patients that depending on how they're doing, our therapy sort of looks like an accordion. There's times that the pieces come in really, really close, and I check in with them every single day, or maybe even every few hours because they're not doing well. And then they start to get more stabilized, and we start pulling the instrument back out again, right? And I might see them every week or every 2 weeks. And sometimes it goes a little bit beyond that, but not often. But seeking therapy, before I said it's a package deal, and it really is, but I'm telling you that I just think that's striking. And it's absolutely the truth. It's my truth. It may not be the truth, but it is my truth that I've looked at all of these cases, and anyone who successfully died by suicide, they were not involved in a current therapeutic relationship. So those of you that are, I want you to pat yourselves on the back. I want you to do something that celebrates you. I want you to congratulate yourself for being so courageous, because it's not easy, but day by day, week by week, month by month, and year by year, it is saving your life. And I'm not saying that because of anything about me, right? There's only so many people that I see. But I know many of you people that are going to be watching this video later. I want you to do the same thing. I want you to congratulate yourself for making the decision for your own mental health, that you are choosing to show up, that you are choosing to do the work, that you are choosing to talk about the tough things. Because it's not easy to bear your, I almost said your soul, but that's not what I mean. You're bearing your weaknesses. You're bearing your embarrassing moments. You're bearing your confusion and your conflict in front of somebody else, hoping that they're going to be able to problem solve that with you. And so here's what I say to you guys that are believers. Did I tell you that therapy is important? Did I prove a case for that? Oh my goodness, I sure hope so. But all therapists are not created equal. If you are a Christian, I am telling you, you need to find someone. You need to stay with someone who shares your faith. You can, and if you don't take my word for it, that's fine. Ask someone that you know that has done therapy with someone who either didn't share their faith and they knew it, or maybe they did, but they didn't incorporate it into the sessions. Ask them the difference between what it's like to do faith-based therapy and not. And I know what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you it's a really big difference, because I'm just trying to think about how to say this. Those two relationships of your mental health providers are so important. They steer such a precious ship with you. That is your life. That you do not want to just, go to Psychology Today and just scan down the screen and, oh, I'll call that person. That you need to vet them really well. You need to put in one of the filters, Christian therapy. And not just that, you need to ask someone when you're doing that first assessment, ask them, how do you incorporate faith into sessions with me? Because it's important to me as a believer that my therapist is encouraging and understanding my faith. It plays a really big role in my community, in my worldview, and I need someone who's going to keep me accountable to that. Notice I didn't say you need to find someone that's going to preach at you and just read verse after verse after verse. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all, but I'm saying that there's a difference between biblical therapy and faith-based clinical therapy. And the latter is what I'm asking you to think about. That means someone has gone through the education to arrive at being a therapist, but they've also done enough extra training and knowledge base and resources to support what's most important to you. And so those two things coming together absolutely can be life-saving. So it's worth waiting for, it's worth seeking, it's worth staying with, whatever, you relate to. So if you're going to do one thing or push for one thing, I hope you remember it's therapy and psychiatry. You also want to remember how important it is to do personal and professional check-ins. I know I kind of threw that out there in the last couple of minutes. I didn't really talk about it, but doing a professional and a personal check-in is really important, because remember what I was saying before, the person who's really struggling with suicidal thoughts, you are disputing to them and for them that yes, you do care. Yes, you are going to ask. One of the easiest questions to ask, especially if you watch my video on how to check in with your loved ones, is to say, what is your number today? If you follow the instructions that I have in that video, then you not only know what it means to ask, what that scale, how that scale is explained, but you also know what it means when they say they're at a 5. For some people, that's a huge deal. For other people, it's like, hey, it's a good day, right? You need to know what that means. A professional check-in, like I said, that's the accordion analogy that I gave you. That's me checking in on someone much more frequently, as opposed to kind of backing off and saying, I'll see you next week. I have noticed this doesn't happen very often, but it happens usually when I'm covering really tough topics or really deep topics, or I'm on a roll like I am tonight and I'm barely coming up for air. The chat is very silent. I've only had a few of you say anything beyond hello. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you are still here. And I don't know if you have questions. Like I said before, this is my time where I'm going to tell you resources. I'm going to tell you how to get a hold of me if there's something that you want me to make sure and cover next week. So if you do not have this readily available in your home, wherever you spend the most time, I would say in an office, in your car, as strange as that is, in your car is where some people get really, really upset and angry and road rage happens. Maybe in your bedroom, you want to have this number. So the suicidal crisis prevention hotline is 988. That's all you have to remember, 988. You can call, you can chat, you can text. If you wanted to chat with them, you would use your laptop or your computer and go to 988lifeline.org. 988lifeline.org. They have trained, I don't know that I would call them professionals because I don't know. I don't know what their situation is, but they are trained counselors for that purpose that are going to talk to you about what you're feeling and offer you some resources and take you seriously. Right? That's one of the biggest takeaways I hope each of you has tonight, that you will take it seriously within yourself, that you will take it seriously amongst others. Again, if you will look back at that video, I know there's not a ton of people that watch that video, and I hope that that can change. I recently changed the title of it. I think it's called Why We Take This Seriously Every Time, or something like that. And it's talking about the people that will frequently say, well, I can do something about that. Or I'm not going to be here much longer anyway. Or they'll say something that that what they're getting at is they've had thoughts of suicide, but you are thinking that they're being overly dramatic, they're catastrophizing the situation, and you're thinking, oh, they're not serious. Do you know how many people have been successful in death by suicide and other people thought, oh, they're not serious? Or I can't possibly see this person doing that. They've got such a great life. Suicide is not a respecter of persons. Okay? The thoughts that are behind this illness and this disease, they come for anybody. They come for rich, poor, black, white, male, female, young, old, known, unknown, all of the above. Okay? And that's why we take it seriously every single time. This has been around since the beginning. You look back in the Bible, you will see suicides talked about because people struggle with finding hope. And again, I'm not making this a big, preachy type session tonight, but there is no hope, true hope, lasting hope outside of Christ. And so if you do not know him, if you have not talked to him in a while, there's no greater therapy, there's no greater answer than going to the one that made you and knit you together and has a plan and a purpose for every single day that you're on this earth. It's him. And you don't have to have, long, elaborate prayers. You can just simply say, God, help me. Bring me to the right people. Show me who you are. Show me what you want me to do in this life. Fill me with hope. Fill me with peace. Comfort me. Hug me. Surround me. And he is faithful. He is absolutely faithful when we reach out to him and ask him. But see, he also engages with us in the same way that a good therapist does with his or her patients. Sometimes we have to ask. I can't help anybody that doesn't come to me. I don't just walk around my neighborhood and just sense who's in trouble. But I help everyone who comes to me. I've never once turned a person down, and I never will. Does that mean that I'm taking them on as my personal patient? No, sometimes I can't. They're not a good fit for me. But the way I address it because I'm thinking about how Jesus would address it. It's a little bit different here, but just I hope you'll hear this. I give them the resources for who would be a right fit. I don't just say, I can't see you. Too bad, so sad. I say, well, how can I help you to get in the right hands? Right? And I think God works in a similar way. Can he do anything at any time? Absolutely he can. But are there times that when we come to him, what he's really asking of us is to get in a community so people can be the hands and feet of him. They can love on us. They can impart truth to us. They can pray with us. They can lay hands on us. They can be in our lives. They can physically check in on us. I think he works that way too, because I've seen it. So we successfully got through everything that I wanted to tonight, and I'm very thankful for that, because there's a lot more to come, but that's a really, really good start into a big topic and a really big month. I just want to leave you guys with a few words, and then we're going to pray. You matter. I say that a lot, and I really mean it a lot. You matter. And anytime that you are having a thought, whether it is, temporary, or it seems like it's a permanent thought, that you are replaceable or that you are like anybody else, that is a lie from the enemy. He would want us to think that way, but it's absolutely fact-based truth that there are no two people alike. God never duplicates, and he never will. So you are irreplaceable. And God has a plan and a purpose for every single person. I know we don't know it every single day. And there are some days that it just feels like we are so not living in it, that we just can't catch a break and things are not going our way. Remember that feelings are temporary. Don't base anything on your feelings. At least no moment. Were suicidal one day, and the very next time I saw them, they said they felt hope. Or even in the same session, they checked in with me feeling suicidal, and 1 hour later they said, I actually feel hopeful. That's God. That's his spirit in me. That is not Kimberly Christian. Okay? I'm not that good. That is him working through me to bring forth hope that things are going to get better. And sometimes I get to be the guide in doing that. And I'm blessed and I'm grateful that I get to do that. So just remember those things, and go back and watch this video again and share it with others. And tune in next week, because there will be part 2 of this very important conversation. And I am absolutely going to take feedback from you guys. So if you work with me and you know how to email me, please do that. Otherwise, you can put a comment on this video. You can follow me on social media. It's the same handle, at Kimberly Christian LCSW on Instagram. And then Facebook, my community Facebook group that is free to join would be the Belief-Based Healing Hub. And you can reach out to me there. I'll see your comments. So thank you guys for being here. Let me say a quick prayer, and then I will see you guys next week. Heavenly Father, I give this time over to you again. I thank you that the words that you brought forth through me tonight, I hope and I pray are going to speak life, that if someone is hearing this and they've struggled and they've been successful in walking out of this, that they're giving you glory. If this is falling on the ears of someone who's actively struggling with this, or they know someone who is, then let them find hope and let them find answers, not only in you, but in also the practical ways that they can talk to that person, that they can ask questions, that they can follow up, and that they can get them the help that they're looking for. There is always, always people that can and want to help. And anything that goes through any of our minds that speaks contrary to that is not of you. That is not your way. You are all about being the way and the truth and the life. God, we are grateful to you. We are grateful for you. You are the giver of life, and you are the one who numbers our days. Let that not ever be something that we think is up to us. You're a gracious God. You're a merciful God, and you are so loving. And may every person that is hearing this just remember how much they are loved, and let that transform their days and weeks ahead. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. I thank you guys so much for being here. I truly do. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.